So I want to thank everyone for joining us today on the live stream. And today we're joined by Professor Thalia Gonzalez. She is one of the co-authors of the study that you saw on the screen, Girlhood Interrupted. So Professor Gonzalez, thank you for joining us on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So Professor Gonzalez, I just have to know, what made the three of you want to say, you know what, we want to dive into the topic of black girls?
I think it's two things. First, we all knew from our work in schools and in the juvenile justice system that disproportionality existed. It wasn't just a theory, but it's the real life experience that black girls have. And so we also know that there had been prior research done on black boys and adultification, the subject of the report. But we were concerned that there hadn't been research on black girls. So we made a commitment to do this research and really understand more deeply the lived experience of black girls and bring to light some of the biases and phenomenon that we're seeing in terms of how adults perceive them.
Yes, and a few things has really stood out to me. And the first thing, when I'm looked at the study, it talks about the three dominant paradigms of black femininity, right, that originated in the South, according to your study, during the period of slavery and have persisted into present-day culture, which paint black females as hypersexual, boisterous, aggressive, and unscrupulous. Now, you describe the Sapphire, Jezebel, and the Mammy. Now, for the audience, could you explain how something from slavery affects black girls and black women today?
Absolutely. So stereotypes and bias, they don't just exist within one moment of time. So we know that slavery was a long-standing tradition. It has some ramifications into today, and those ramifications are how people view each other. And that also means what it's like in law. So when you take the fact that there were long-standing, deeply held beliefs about black women and black girls, that was translated into law, that was translated into how people approached black women and black girls, it can't just be erased in a decade or two. Jim Crow is a very recent phenomenon. I know that a lot of times people have deep concerns about still talking about slavery, but it's a very ripe and relevant conversation because as a society and as culture, and not just our report, in fact, there's a whole field of research that looks at bias and stereotypes in psychology, that those have continued on today. And so our work today now is to not just talk about those, but to then start to overcome those and move forward.
So in your study, you talk about black girls. How can a little black girls exhibit the behavior of a sapphire?
Well, that's one of the things that we found so deeply troubling about the study. How is it that a 5-year-old has more knowledge about sex, for example? And that's because those are the perceptions that adults are laying on them, not because black girls are acting in a particular way or have that knowledge. And that's what is so disturbing, but also what is so important about bringing this forward and being able to make these changes. Because it's not that a young black girl at 5 years old or 10 years old is acting in a particular way. It's that people are assuming that she acts in that way, assuming she has this knowledge, and assuming these stereotypes about her. And so they're making different decisions on how they might treat her.
So for me, just to hearing, when I read that, I automatically think, as a father that have, daughters, one is 2, going to be 3, I have a 15-year-old and also have a 17-year-old. To hear somebody say that my little 2-year-old is a more adult-like, or by the time she gets 5, she's no more about sex, I would think that person is perverted.
Well, I mean, I think it's also remembering that the study was asking a range of questions, such as, do girls need more comforting? Do girls need more nurturing? So especially when we're talking about that early range, that 5 to 9-year-old range, that's a pivotal time of childhood development. And so even if an individual adult isn't thinking about them as hypersexualized, if they think that they're more adult-like, or they don't need more nurturing, or they don't need more protection, then what does that mean in kindergarten, in first grade, and second grade? And I think those are the linkages that we're trying to have people make. and one of the potential explanations that we see for why disproportionately Black girls experience school discipline at higher rates than not just their white girl peers, but also white boys. And so, we know that there's reports in the media. We've all seen these incredibly difficult and disturbing videos to watch about the treatment of young Black girls. But take another example, and we talk about this in the report. In New York City, a young girl was using a pass for a youth, and she was handcuffed, taken by the subway police to the station, held in handcuffs, even though both of her parents were called to confirm her age, that she was a youth. And it wasn't until her mother brought her birth certificate down to the station to prove that ultimately they released her. And so it's all of these compounding facts and factors in how Black girls are being viewed as more adult-like, more sexualized, more knowledgeable about topics, needing less comfort, needing less nurturing, that all together is what's creating this really difficult racialized and sexualized moment for them, where they're experiencing life in a fundamentally different way than other girls.
You was mentioning discipline, and I was looking at the study here, and it speak on Black girls and white girls. Now, they was talking about in-school suspensions, single suspensions, and multiple suspensions, and also talk about being arrested as well. Now, we notice that the Black girls are only 15.6% of enrollment, but yet 36.6% of the in-school suspensions, and the white girls are 32.9. But when it gets really off the charts is these single suspensions outside of school and multiple suspensions. So why is it that Black girls are so high and the white girls decline? Why is that?
So we think adultification may be one answer to that question. I think that there's potentially a number of different responses from research that thinks about why that's happening. But, we would make the connection that if teachers, disciplinarians, school resource officers are viewing Black girls differently, meaning that if they believe that Black girls should be treated as adults, that they're not going to give them the same leniency that they give white girls. If they think that they need less comfort or nurturing, or that they need less protection, they're not going to necessarily have the same mentorship commitment to them. So it's a whole range of those factors coming together that when this bias exists, when this phenomenon is playing out in the day-to-day life of Black girls, that they're going to experience that through both single suspensions or multiple suspensions. And I would say that, one of the important things to look at as a data point in the report as well is that many of those suspensions and expulsions are for things that are very discretionary. So you have something like talking back to a teacher. So if you think a student, going back to your point about stereotypes, if you think a student is angry and loud when she's voicing her legitimate opinion in a classroom, you might be willing to treat her differently than another student who you don't think is boisterous and loud or frightening, or any of the stereotypes and biases that you might associate with them.
Yes, and also I was viewing the arrest, and it was stating that girls referred to law enforcement, Black girls is at 28.2%, and white girls at 34.3%, which white girls are higher. But when it comes to actually getting arrested, Black girls at 37.3 and white girls at 30.2. So why are the Black girls getting arrested yet they're being referred less than white girls to law enforcement?
So they're facing more referrals. So, and moving into the juvenile justice system. So in some instances, there are more white girls that are ultimately being arrested, but then they aren't being actually referred into the system. So at that moment of discretion from arrest, for example, or at the moment of discretion, to use another example that we bring up in the report, which is prosecution, right? There's bias that could be built in. So if I have the discretion of the prosecutor to say, I'm going to drop a case in one instance, girl, but I'm not going to drop a case in the instance of a Black girl for the exact same type of behavior, that could be because they're doing them in these ways, in the exact ways the study showed that's how adults are perceiving Black girls. So it goes back to this idea of you're treating Black girls differently than their peers for what could be the exact same type of behavior. And you're doing that because you're overlaying these different stereotypes about them at an earlier and earlier age. So the study didn't just look at girls at age 5, right? The study went all the way up to age 19, and we have a really strong peak in terms of adult perceptions, these negative perceptions and differential perceptions in that middle school age. And that's an age of critical developmental change, right? We all know someone, we were all probably in middle school at some stage, or we know someone that has had a kid in middle school, or we've met a middle schooler, and they are challenging authority. They are thinking, they are dynamic, they are growing into their adult selves, and neuroscience shows that kids are different. And so we just need to ensure that if science tells us that kids are different, we are treating all kids with the same level, right? All girls with the same level of leniency and understanding about the science in that way. And so then their behaviors are viewed with the potential leniency as well.
Now, there's one part of your study that really bothered me in the area of, it goes back to the stereotypes. You're saying that, paraphrasing, they kind of heavy-handed deal with black girls because they're trying to civilize them. Why is that?
So there's been a lot of research in schools about the perception, not just the perceptions of black girls, but that particular behaviors and attitudes aren't ladylike, for example, right? And it goes right back to where you started this conversation about stereotypes. If someone is viewed as an angry black woman, right, which is a very common stereotype, not just coming out of slavery, but is perpetuated over and over again right now in society, and women are being referred to as that way. If that is how black girls are being perceived, then you can see that the way that they're being treated differently.
Well, the thing that I have a problem with saying you civilizing someone is that you look at them, number one, as lower by using that term. I'm trying to civilize you. And this is the problem that we've had just forever as being black people. You know, someone outside of our community is always trying to come in and tell us what we're doing right or wrong. But then I went to school just as much as you went to school. I seen white girls fighting, white girls out there being fast and everything else, just as much as I saw a black girl do it. But I noticed that every time the white girl was given leniency and the black girl was always getting into trouble. And then don't even bring in the colorism aspect of this. Now, did you kind of touch on colorism any in this particular study?
So this study, we wanted to have it be blinded, and we wanted to have survey respondents, really adults who were answering the survey, talking about their perceptions about girls in terms of childhood. So we were asking questions, either the question said black girls or the question said white girls. Nobody knew that they would be compared to each other, or that we were trying to understand what childhood innocence might look like, or what perceptions might look like. So we weren't embedding the questions about colorism in that way. But I think you raise an important point, and also that, you know, there's so much anecdotal evidence about this. You know, our study in some ways isn't new, right? I think that there are many women and many girls you know, who can say, you know, this is the experience I had in schools, or this is the experience I'm currently having. The level of outreach that we've had as authors to the study, and the response by black women and girls saying, that's what my life has felt like. I've had teachers say that to me. I've had to deal with these issues before. You know, we're just simply putting data behind a lived experience that exists in the world right now, and doing so with a desire to have not just attention called to it, but substantive policy changes.
So, you know, here, Professor Gonzalez, we think about a lot of solutions just as parents. I'm pretty sure there's other people listening that have black girls or even black girls in their family. What is our solution to this? Because we, both of us know that the majority of teachers in the public schools are Caucasian female, correct?
I mean, I don't know the stats of what the percentage is of white teachers in schools, but I think disproportionately, anecdotally, yes, that white women tend to be the teachers in schools, and the schools that I've worked in particular. So,
Okay, well, since we're seeing all this inherent bias, and do you feel that black teachers would have the same bias toward black girls?
Well, so our study actually was done with the same representative sample of what the country is in terms of race and ethnicity. So, stereotypes and bias might be more prevalent in one community, but we have to remember that they do transcend communities. And so, I certainly can't say whether black teachers would or wouldn't have these biases from our study. The work of Edward Morris, for example, has asked that as a question and has looked at whether white teachers or black teachers have different stereotypes associated with students. And in fact, the quote about civilizing them came out of some of his research.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to find a solution as a parent because I have a child that's going to be going to school in another year or two. And to read this study, of course, we kind of knew this, but to actually read it and it's literally in your face in a respectable publication. What solutions do you think that we should do as parents, as black parents,
Sure.
To combat this?
Well, I think there's a couple different ways that this can be attacked, right? There's at a very personal level as parents, which is having those conversations with our children, right? And that's not to excuse the system, right? I want to be very clear that that doesn't mean that the system doesn't need to change in itself. But I think that honesty that parents can have with their children is an important first step to help to also start to unwrap some of that, so that if their daughter in that instance is hearing that from a peer, that they can challenge that. And in the same way, if their son is perpetuating that can be challenged as well, and that's important. But then stepping outside of our role as parents with our children, then we need to think about what we can do within our individual schools, right? And that's demanding change within our schools. And that could be change that looks at how we change discipline code policies, right? So removing discipline code policies that disproportionately impact Black girls at these rates that are very subjective. So what would it look like to have your daughter in a school where there is no longer the opportunity for a subjective discipline code policy, for example, talking back, right? Willful defiance, those types of things. That isn't an option for suspension and expulsion. So there can't be that removal from the classroom. And there's been incredible movements across the country of parents coming together and doing that work. Los Angeles, where my home institution is, I'm at Georgetown Law School right now, but where my home institution is, there is a group of parents who organize for school discipline. They've been doing that for more than 15 years. They have led to the changes in LA Unified to roll back those types of punitive discipline policies. So in South Los Angeles, right, this is deep in South Los Angeles, and it's incredibly powerful and transformative work. And why? Because it's parents who are being deeply impacted, and their kids are being deeply impacted in that way. But then also as parents, it's focusing our attention in the way that we can push policymakers and legislators to make change. Because it might be that our individual school changes, maybe our school even implements something such as restorative justice as opposed to punitive discipline. But how do we start to then have change at the state level or arguably at the national level? And I think that matters relative to juvenile justice. We've spent a fair amount of time talking about education, but we know that within the juvenile justice system, we see these same types of patterns of disproportionality. So as parents, or even not as parents, as any level of a caregiver, what is it to start to contact representatives? What is it to become involved in policy forums that are having these very significant conversations about female incarceration? There's one happening here in DC next week. It's a completely open public forum. It's to start to try to, really bring forth a deeper conversation and see substantive policy changes in that way. And training. I totally forgot, right? I mean, that's so critical as well. What is it to have a demand for training within all of our public system, schools, juvenile justice, child welfare, anywhere where adults have authority over children, and in particular Black girls, so that there's training that exists to be able to unwrap this bias, right? So many times we're talking about bias that's unconscious that people don't realize that they're bringing into the classroom, into a courtroom, into a meeting about a young girl. And so how do we bring that to light so that that can change as well?
So, Professor Gonzalez, when I was looking at that study, basically it's a study saying that you're guilty for just existing.
I mean, I think that's an interesting way of putting it. I think that you are less innocent for existing, right? I mean, I think that we very much were asking questions about what is the understanding that adults have about child development and about child innocence. And so going back to this idea that, you don't need as much nurturing, you don't need as much protection, you don't need as much comfort, you are deemed to act more adult-like.
Yeah, because I didn't see anything that you were saying in there that other children don't do. And it's nothing you was pointing out saying, well, black children or black girls do this, that's why this happened. So to me, it seems like they are existing, going through this, and this is basically just another deal of racism, just at the school level.
It's racism and sexism, right? I mean, that's what we have to remember, is that black girls and black women are experiencing that intersection of race and gender. So they're dealing with sexism, they're dealing with racism, and putting those two together means that the experience that they have is, yes, different than other girls.
Yes, that we do know. And like I said, I'm glad that this was, put out, and we're definitely going to put the link out for people to actually go through the study themselves, and maybe other people that make videos, they could, review this and share this with their audience. But just as a black parent, it just, for me, it just proves that racism, it just permeates every institution. And when we do these news reports speaking about these issues, there are some people that deny that. You put together or co-authored a study that basically proves this, that black girls just exist and they got to deal with stereotypes that had nothing to do with them. They wasn't even going through slavery, and now they're dealing with slavery stereotypes.
Well, and I think that's the point, right? We need to bring attention to the fact that black girls are living a different experience than other girls, and in particular white girls, and that's not acceptable. And so there has to be change. This is, a call for substantive change and for action. It's not meant to just be an academic study that someone puts on their shelf or says, oh, I pat myself on the back because I participated in it and I wrote it. As authors, we are deeply committed to this being change, and that this being something that it's not just about highlighting it, but that there is going to be substantive moments of discussion. And then that discussion means that the lives of black girls could be impacted in positive ways. And that matters deeply to all of us as co-authors, not just within our work, but professionally and personally on so many levels.
So, Professor Gonzalez, before we wrap up, do you want to share anything about the study that maybe we didn't touch on?
I think that, I invite people to look at the study. Again, we put it out in a really transparent way, in a really accessible way, because that's incredibly important to us. But, one of the things that, I think the audience should look at is the range in ages, right? It's not just disturbing to think about this with respect to a 5-year-old and the expectations that a 5-year-old might know more about sex, but again, that a 5-year-old shouldn't be treated with the same care and nurturing and comforting, but that's increasing over time and peaking in that really critical stage of neurological development and just social development in the middle school. So if adultification, if this idea that black girls are less innocent and more adult-like means that they're being pushed into the juvenile justice system, means that they're being taken out of the classroom, means that they don't have mentorship opportunities, right, then we must all be committed to seeing something different, right? So if that's as parents within our individual schools, if that's as educators within a school, if that's working as a police officer, thinking twice before you put your knee on the back of a young black girl in a bikini. We've all seen that disturbing video, right? And handcuffing her. That is where we need to start to see these changes. And so I invite your audience to really look at that in terms of change over time, and the ages that we were exposing in this study, and also what this means relative to Black boys. We focused on Black girls, but by no means are we suggesting that Black boys aren't experiencing adultification. But the one difference is, the earlier studies that looked at Black boys, they found that this started at age 10. And so, that's 5 years earlier for Black girls. So we have a lot of work to do, and I really challenge and invite everyone to be part of what that looks like.
So, Professor Gonzalez, I want to definitely thank you for your time today, joining us on the show and sharing with us the study. I hope you do great in your fall session coming up with your students.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And, folks can visit the website. There's active Twitter feeds from the Center on Poverty and Inequality. There's several videos, and as authors, we certainly invite thoughts and feedback, because this is an important issue.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, and definitely appreciate you. Everyone, go and see the study and contact Professor Gonzalez, if possible, on Twitter if you have any questions. And thank you for joining us, Professor Gonzalez.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Have a good afternoon.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I need to respond to something somebody said real quick, and we need to really have a conversation just for a second and put everything in the proper perspective. I could actually do this. Just give me a second before I have to get off of here myself. All right, so as you heard, that was the study. We'll put that link and pin it at the top once I'm done and all this stuff processed and stuff like that. But check out that particular study. I reached out for the simple fact that let one of the authors come on and talk about this study outside of me. Now, we know all this stuff has been going on with our children, male and female, and even the men and the women. The reason why I definitely wanted to point out with her that part of her study that spoke about the stereotypes from slavery is because when we talk about slavery, it is relevant to 2017. Everything that has to do with slavery, stereotypes, colorism, the house slave and the field slave, the Willie Lynch, all this stuff is relevant to 2017. So don't let none of these people come and tell you that it's not relevant, that you wasn't a slave and they didn't have you on the plantation in 2017. The plantation mentality is here. If people is developing studies from colleges to show that the slave mentality that created the system is still here. And then one person made a comment that really got on my nerves. And some of y'all are stupid. I'm just going to say it's stupid. You say, oh, we don't need a white woman on here to talk about Black girls. First of all, she wasn't white. And even if she was white, so what? They put together a study to prove what we're saying here is accurate every day. To talk about slavery is literally affecting us or the remnants of slavery in 2017. Some of y'all got to stop being stupid. Not everybody is against you. Listen, this is my position on everybody. Let me be clear. I don't like no radical Caucasian terrorists. I don't like no thugs. I don't like no hood rats. I don't like scammers. I don't like race soldiers. I don't like anybody that's going to hurt or harm the progression of our community. But if a person is not doing that, I don't take issue with them. And we got to be real, because some people be online doing all that rah-rah talking, but in the real world, you won't talk that way to nobody. So anything I say it to people's face, and they'll tell you that. What you get here is what you get in public from me. Because I don't want to have the reputation of us talking on here and then get outside of here and I can't say the same thing. Period. I'm just saying that because I'm reading this and then I have guests and they reading comments as well. And it's like, really? Come on now. I mean, this is to the interest of our community. Whoever's coming on is coming on in those guys and those interests. So you want to respect anyone, which I respect all people that come here to discuss things in our interest. Even if we disagree with them, they still coming for an interest, maybe to show something for a reason, whatever, right? So that's just like what I want to say about this situation. Some people go too far with it. You don't want to become what you hate. If you talk about the cave beast, well, you don't want to turn into the black version of the cave beast. You don't. So have the hatred for the right things, what I call a righteous hatred. The terrorists, the race soldiers, the alt-right, all those people, you can have all the hate in the world for them. And anybody who sympathizes with them, go ahead. That's up to you. But if someone is not doing that, don't do that. That's the only thing that I'm saying. It's not going to be good for you. Because when you have too much hate towards something, it's like cancer of your soul. It's going to permeate your whole soul, so you won't be able to even love the people that you say you want to love, which is people in your community, right? So just as a parent, hearing everything that was in that study, reading it myself, listening to Professor Gonzalez for coming on and explaining part of the study, racism permeates the education system. Law enforcement hurts our children that's in schools. It's just horrible. And all due to stereotypes and talking about they're going to civilize our young brothers and sisters. My thing is, who are they to civilize anybody? If you know the history, they ran from Europe because they wasn't civilized. We civilized them. But yeah, you talking about civilizing us? This is why it's important that we looking more and more into homeschool, creating private schools, because studies like this are telling us our children is being subjected. Yes, I was reading one sister say she was a teacher and some of the kids do come in there like that. A child growing up in a rough environment with Pookie's on the corner and Ray dealing drugs and the local D-boy and shooting up the place. Of course, those kids going to be a little bit more advanced because they got to survive. They have to. But not all our children grow up like that. Some of our children are just kids. They're not older in nature. And this stuff about sex, like, how would I look at any of my little kids and say, oh, that's what in their mind? And why is it that they look at their children as delicate flowers? They don't do nothing wrong. Now, in that study, it said that when white girls are arrested, they drop their charges 70% of the time. But when it's a black girl, it's only 30% of the time. So it goes back to those FBI crime stats. They may show them being arrested for some things more, but they don't go to jail. Because when you look at the jail stats, they're not the majority in jail, which they should be by percentage. But with us, we're sentenced more than anybody else. So racism do permeate everything in this country. Religion, finance, politics, you name it, racism is a part of it. So when I make statements like, if they take racism away from them, they won't know how to be because they have built racism into a culture. They get mad, but you can't refute that because you don't know how to operate without it. Yes, it's 70-30. Same thing on white males. I have done videos. What was that video I done? Well, who's that? I guess, was it Brock Turner was one? Only getting 3 months. 3 months. They sit up there, rape infants. Don't go to jail. I put that up on my Advice Show media channel. Subscribe to that channel if you haven't subscribed to it. I've done a lot of stories that they do crimes and they don't get the time that we get. They say, oh, I don't want to ruin his life with a sexual registered sex offender. I don't want to ruin his life. Well, I don't want to do this to him. I don't want to do that to him. I mean, it's blatant stuff that we see. And then, we're the racists for pointing that out. We're the racists for saying, hey, it's a double standard here. Treat everybody the same. You're the racist for saying that. But when you fashion yourself as a god And when you think you know everything, when you think you're going to civilize people, but you don't civilize yourself, then you get what a God gets at the end of the day. You deal with the true God, because the true and living God is increasing the power of that sun. So much so that I saw an article on CNN where them jokers was talking about they're going to try to block out the sun. Good luck with blocking out the sun. Like, who are you? Like, what's that old statement? Your arm's not long enough to box with God, but yet they want to try. Yeah, you're right. You're right, brother. Judges look at them like relatives instead of defendants. You're right. You're 100% right. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They don't look at them as criminals. And, oh, it's the same thing like with those Caucasian police. They look at other white people as a brother. He looked like my cousin. She looked like my sister. She kind of reminded me of my mother or my dad. But when they approach us, no. That's why I say the things I say. You know, because some Caucasians were bothered when I said that I don't think Caucasian police officers should be engaging black people because of inherent bias, because of racism, because of they just don't have good thoughts to black people all over the place. And to eliminate taxpayers paying millions of dollars in settlements, constantly paying them, right? That could be going to roads, it could be going to programs for the poor, could be going to education. Hire more black officers and let the black officers interact with the black communities. I don't see a problem with that. It's the thing is that when we ask for something like that to prevent problems, right? And they say, oh, well, you want segregation. I want to prevent a problem. And if you keep seeing a problem, it's like in school. If you see two kids together and all the time they're always talking, they talk, they get in trouble. Your teacher, 9 times out of 10, is going to separate those children and put this kid over here, put that kid over there. And when they put those kids away from each other, the talking stops. Why? Because the problem was them being together. That was the problem. So I've just doing videos, news stories for years and seeing the same thing happen. I feel that we need black officers to patrol the black communities and engage black people. Let's just try it out. Try it out for about 5 good years and see how that will work. I guarantee the lawsuits will drop. You won't have the lawsuits will drop. You won't have the problems. All kind of stuff. Right? Why is it that I can go to Chinatown off of Bel Air here in Houston? They got a Houston Police Department, but nothing but agent officers there. A whole substation with agent officers, say Houston Police Department, and also in their writing. No Caucasians go over there and tell them it's wrong, it's racist, why are you separating? They don't tell them a word. They can have their Asian officers. I don't have a problem with them having Asian officers in the Asian community. I don't take issue with that. But if we made a request to put a Houston Police Department, whatever city you live in a black area with black officers, that's a problem. And I kept paying attention that they don't worry about no other group of people except us. Now here lately, because of Trump, yeah, they focusing on Mexican people with immigration. And the only reason they focusing on that, because I told y'all, I go read their websites and I listen to their podcasts and everything. The only reason they don't like Hispanics or Mexicans, I'm going to say, is because they're outpopulating them in the area of children. The Arabs, they fear their law of retaliation. So they don't like them either. They fear they're going to just say, forget this. We about to go to war. That's what they're afraid of. They're also afraid of blacks who subscribe to Islam as well, because it wouldn't take much for, let's say they do something to a black Islamic person, for them to believe in the law of retaliation as well, which is in the Quran. So they're afraid of that. But the thing is, as black people, we can't be left the hell alone. they had this one female, Kathy, and I don't know how to say her last name, is ZHU. She's trying to sound like the Asian Tommy Lauren. Her handle is called Political Kathy. That's her name. She was talking very greasy about black people the other day. So I told her, I said, look, you want to come on the show and discuss black people, you're welcome to. But she didn't want to come on. But, a lot of people was getting at her neck and talking about the model minority. And the deal is, the reason why they was allowed to do all that, like, the system don't mess with them. They're an example of when you being left alone and you can do for yourself and in your own communities. That's why they ahead like that. Black people have never experienced that in this country, not one day, that to be left alone. When black people built over 60 towns, here they come destroying it. Mobs, burning it down. When these black people couldn't even live around Caucasians. But we don't supposed to talk about that, because that's the past. None of you were in the race riots. I heard one of them say yesterday, and it was so funny. We need to just forget all that happened. No. I will remind you daily, as much as possible, of what you've done and what you're continuing to do. And I'm going to remind you that you could do something about it, but you choose not to because you like the way the system is, a one-sided system. I'm going to always remind you of that. I had one guy made a video, Caucasian male, not liking some things I was saying, and I say the same thing to him. I'm going to remind everyone about the history. I take my positions on racism, and I'm going to speak against it. And if you're not that way, I'm not talking about you. If you are an apologist, then it's going to bother you. It's kind of like if somebody that's a thug or someone who do bad things. If you talk about them, I'm not pissed off. Why? I don't do those things. Usually when you say something, usually they say a hurt dog will holler. They holler because secretly a lot of them agree with Richard Spencer secretly, not openly, but secretly. Or David Duke secretly, not openly. So when you say those things, it bothers them when you say that. Now, also, there's been a lot of videos that's been out of race soldiers. And I'm going to cover every last one of these videos about these race soldiers. That's what I have to do. I have to use my platform to get out there and say, hey, these race soldiers are running amok in 2017 in the summertime. There's one that a brother got handcuffed and he got his dog just chewing his arm up. You got another video came out of a cop beating a homeless black woman like she a freaking slave on a plantation. I just saw another one out of Bakersfield where some Officer Vasquez punched a black girl in the face, accusing her of mistaken identity, seek the dog on her. I mean, just told his little young sister up. I'm going to post all that. And one person gave me a suggestion, and whoever you are, thank you for the suggestion, because I'm willing to listen. A lot of you guys stated that, hey, when you find out who these police departments are, post their Twitters, post their Facebook, and post, numbers for complaints. And I'm going to start doing that. That way, when you guys see these videos, you guys can take action and say, hey, what's going on with the investigation? What's going to happen? Because these police departments need public pressure on them, because the local media is not going to pressure them like that. They're in bed together. I saw another video. I've been paying attention to the mainstream fake media, because that's what they are. They fake. They blur the cops' faces. And in the current video I just put up, I want you to go look at it. That one about the Boston cop that made the video talking about this summer black people met their match. Go back and watch that video. When I showed the real video, I don't blur their faces. They need to be exposed. But when the media showed it, they blurred their faces. Why are you blurring those cops' faces? But in that same video, they didn't blur not one black person's face. Not a one. Hold on. What did she say? Hold on. I want to see what she said. I'm interested in seeing what she said. Hold on. Sister Victoria, you deleted something. Okay. Where did it go? It said it was a stupid channel. Okay, on YouTube. Well, if it's stupid, then why are you watching? I have people who obviously don't like me, don't agree with my opinions, but yeah, they will come and watch the YouTube channel. Like we talk about going to schools so we can stay out of trouble, maybe having black police officers so we can minimize racial encounters and bias and stuff like that. We can't even have our own section of channels on YouTube where we can just talk about issues in the black community, and they're here too. Like, we don't go to their Ku Klux Klan website. We don't do any of that as black people. We mind our business. Yeah, I saw that you blocked her and everything. I never had Umar Johnson on the show, not one time. Yeah, like I said, yeah, I don't worry about it. You know, I saw all that, I did, and it's certain reasons why I don't see what you're talking about, the Tariq situation. I don't engage individual YouTubers because I know the game of YouTube and I know the rules, and I rather focus on the system. That's what I focus on, because little people on YouTube don't make the laws. They're not the race soldiers. They're not the politicians. They're not the mayors. They're not the city managers. So I don't want to engage them. It's stupid. It's their opinion. They can call me black, whatever. They can not like me. Cool. I'm not engaging them. Who I'm going to engage is the race soldiers and the police departments and the politicians and those who are really affecting the black community. That's who I'm doing that with. That petty, never get involved, argue, or explain anything to those who are not controlling anything, right? Don't do that. That's why I won't do I've learned my lesson. Never waste your precious time discussing anything with them unless you are in control. Don't go to their platforms or now somebody say, you went on Jesse Lee Peterson. Let me tell you something about Jesse Lee Peterson. I would actually engage Jesse Lee Peterson, Larry Elder, or any other we call someone that's a coon. I would engage with them. And believe it or not, the funny part about Jesse Lee Peterson, y'all can't see it, but I can, and I can actually hear it more than what you think. Jesse Lee got he actually care about black people a little bit. He actually do. He just so infused with the system that he can't actually walk away from that, because he built his whole little empire off of cooning. So it's kind of like saying, take all his money away. He's not going to do that. So, and I didn't realize the dude was 68 years old. So he an old one at that. So I don't know. I think Jesse funny in a lot of ways. Jesse don't upset me at all. He don't upset me, not one time. I think he's very funny. But the situation of Sister Shayla May, the situation with that's why I was saying at the time we had to add, we still got to add situation. That's why it's important to support your content creators, like on places like Patreon. So if something like the Tariq situation happened, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything because you still rolling. You could just, and that's why as a content creator, you have to create multiple channels, have multiple channels in the tuck ready to go. If that's what you're going to start doing, going at people. Because YouTube changed their rules about going at people because them Caucasians was really doing it bad at each other, doxing people. And so YouTube really started changing rules. So when you go at other YouTubers, you kind of going along those grounds, because Tariq didn't have no issues like that till he started going at them. When he was going at the system, then they can complain, but he wasn't targeting, and that's how YouTube used it, as a target, right? So that's why I don't engage him. I don't fool with him. I see a lot of racist YouTubers. I don't care. Let them make their videos. I believe in freedom of speech. I really do. I just don't believe you coming on my page saying anything you want about black people. That's different. But you want to talk about black people on your page, you want to make racist websites, have at it. You know, it just makes me feel that as black people, we're extremely relevant to the point that you have to make videos and websites 24/7 about us, and you have to talk about IQ and tell yourself you're smart and all this other stuff, you know? So yeah, well, definitely, yeah, unity. Oh, about the Roland Martin thing, glad you brought that up. I'm going to do a live stream on that. Roland Martin, if you're going to... Roland Martin, to say that he used to work on CNN, he didn't learn anything. How, if you're going to attack Umar Johnson, if I had to do it and I had him in my face, I could hit him to the point that he wouldn't talk, if that was what I was trying to do. All that, what people say, you don't use what people say. That was messy from the get-go. But like I said, I think I'll do a live stream on that. It's some things that Umar says that's Umar's opinion, and people getting all mad about his opinions. Take what he says as facts, and you could back them up as facts and run with them. Some things is his opinions, and if you agree with his opinions, fine. If you don't, fine. I don't get why people are so pissed off with him about the Breakfast Club with his position on marriage and dating. That's that man's opinion. That man's opinion don't control the world. Oh, why he say that? And because to me, it showed me a bigger problem with black people, not even with him. Like, y'all fight hard about marrying Caucasians and dating Caucasians. Y'all fight tooth and nail for that. But y'all won't fight these race soldiers and speak up about these race soldiers that's killing and getting dogs biting our sisters and brothers wholesale out here, shooting our people in the back 4 times. And why don't we get that angry and black Twitter go off about that? Forget what Umar talking about some dating. We got our people getting killed out here. That's the stuff I'm talking about with us as black people. Our focus and anger's in the wrong spot. We talk more about Roland and Umar, and we'll go talk about all these rash things of race soldiers just doing some 1960s beatings and dog bitings of our brothers and sisters. Let's get angry about that junk. Bakersfield police, them, and many others. Like I said, I'm not, because this, I told y'all this many times before. I don't believe in telling people what to do, but I do tell you things on a cautionary tale. That's how I do it. I said, look, at the end of the day, do what you want to do. It's your life. I can't control you. I'm one man. I wasn't raised to disrespect anybody, because Umar said that you can't respect somebody if they marry a white person. Look, I was raised to respect all people. It's not my business what you do, period. Only thing I care about is the bigger picture. That's what I care about. That's it. My thing is, if you gonna marry them, if you gonna do it, they better benefit your community. They better help you get business loans. They better be helping you change laws to benefit the black community. They better be doing something, because they shouldn't be just sitting around you if they're gonna be with you like that. That is my opinion. But also, in this climate, it's kind of like the 60s and 50s climate. 60s and 50s climate, you didn't have a bunch of black folks dating and marrying white folks. Why? Because it could have cost you your life. Well, we're kind of back to that right now in a lot of ways. And black folks don't get it. But if you want to do it, that's your business. I'm not going to stop you. I see you on the street, or we go to a meet and greet, one of the people at Patreon, and you married to a white person or whatever. I'm not going to disrespect your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend. I'm not going to do that. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to be respectful. Period. But when we talk about things, I'm not going to bat my mouth to talk about black issues in front of your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend. I'm not. I'm going to talk about it. And if they're looking awkward, I'm going to look at them like, well, you ought to know who you're sitting in front of. I'm not going to change my conversation just because we're in front of each other. That's just my position. I had people, ask me certain questions, and like situation with Umar, he said he can't respect people. Well, what if one of these NFL players wanted to give him $10 million right now to open up his school? What are you gonna say? I can't respect you because you married to a white chick? Like, man, forget the white chick. Take the $10 million, bruh. Open up the school for these black kids. That's what you need to be doing. Forget that hand it came through. But see, as me, I think about the bigger picture of everything. Anything I'm looking at, I'm thinking about the bigger pictures. As black people, we are, unfortunately, a lot of us have been trained to look 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. We just looking at today, maybe this week, maybe next week. But we not trained to look down the line. That's why we don't really focus so much on chess moves. And those folks, they have think tanks preparing for 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now. So they are setting up a lot of things in place to be prepared for next time around. For instance, like for today, the choices you made today, you're living from the past, right? Anything you made in the past. So what you do in the future is going to be based off of the choices in 2017 on. So if in 2017, if I want to be somewhere in 5 years, I need to make these kind of moves. So 5 years, I could be right here. And that's not what we looking at. The bigger picture is always important. The bigger fish to fry is always important in this fight against the system, not an individual. An individual race soldier, yes, he is a problem, but the system is the problem. The police unions is a problem. That's the things that we believe in going after. Not even Richard Spencer. Okay, Richard Spencer can say what he wants. The system is the problem. He's just speaking out and he's just showing who they really are, but it's the system. It's not Richard Spencer because he's not controlling crap other than his little band of savages that he influences. And we always got to keep that in mind, brothers and sisters. Expose the symbolisms they use, expose hand gestures, expose tattoos, expose all that stuff they're doing. Educate the masses about what they do. Do that stuff. But don't engage individuals because they send individuals your way to distract you from your mission of what you have going on. I learned that years ago when it came to this stuff, when me and old boy Tommy Sotomayor was going back and forth constantly. I learned that lesson. Once you learn that lesson, then you move on from that. That's silly to go back and forth with anybody. Focus on the big picture. That's why when people make videos about me, I don't say a word about it. Let them make their videos. But I'm focusing on the bigger picture. Even we talk about, oh, well, the coons, yes, the coons are a problem, but they're not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the system. That's the problem. The system. Not black people in our community that's cooning it up. Because they're not in control of nothing either. Trust me, they're not. They're not making laws. They're not doing nothing. They just getting the crumbs from massa. That's it. So always keep that in mind. The system. Education. We need to solve that. Our girls are going through so many different things. Yes, no, I didn't do the story about that dude that was murdered in Greece. I need to do that. But that dude was screwed up all the way around. But like this, and I'm gonna keep it real. If he knew me, first of all, I would have told him, you don't go in no club, you by yourself, and in a strange place, and all these white folks around. Are you crazy? That's the first thing I'd have told him. Period. And if you're gonna go do that, you better go in there about 7-8 deep with some brothers that's ready to throw down, if need be. But for me, I say, well, why didn't he go to just a mixed club if you want to do that, or a black club if you want to do that? I'm pretty sure maybe they had that over there. I don't know. And then my thing is, why aren't we going to Africa, African nations? Why aren't we doing that? We got these black people. I read another comment from a dude saying that he was in Australia and a white dude broke a bottle over his head because he was pissed off that the white girls was all flocking around him. Why can't y'all go to African nations? I guarantee you nobody gonna break a bottle over your head because you picking up a black chick. I'm just saying. It's the only thing I'm saying. Then I seen a video today. A brother recorded one. his Caucasian female was drinking bleach because she wasn't getting her way with him. I said, man, y'all brothers, y'all brothers with these get outs. Y'all gotta chill out, man, with that. But like I said, if something happened, like I say, to each his own. Do what you want. Do what you want. I'm just speaking as a cautionary tale because I get emails all the time about that. That's your business. Like I said, do you. But I'm just a cautionary guy. That's it. But at the same time, I'm going to say something else. Brothers aren't the only ones that need that work too. I think all the way around, because I'm noticing this too, and I'm going to keep bringing this up. Brothers are being told all the time about the Caucasian female, but the black woman is being let underneath the radar with these Caucasian males. And when I'm seeing these videos of that video I saw, that Caucasian male beating the hell out of that black woman, I'm just looking at that, and I'm just shaking my head. I think we need to take a stand on certain things, period. Don't say, well, because black men do more. Like, look, if you're against something, it don't matter who do more or do less. You're against it. Period. Of course, I know the majority of sisters don't want nothing to do with Caucasian males. I know that. Don't tell me about studies. I know about that. You say black men do it more. Yes, I know about that as well. Yes, that is true. But also the psychology of a whole lot of things with black men. Nobody want to listen to black men on a whole lot of things. And then I was talking to Sister Sadia today. Glad to talk to her. I said our biggest issue in the black community that I've seen is that we don't know how to be husbands and wives. We don't know how to have healthy relationships. That's why we don't want to be around each other. We can't stand each other in relationships. That's really what it is. They've allowed, the women don't want to cook no more or do the things that women used to do back in my grandmother's time. The guys don't want to do what the men used to do in my grandfather's time. We don't want to do it. Then you have some men who can still do that. You have some women that still cook and do all the things that to run a household, nurture children, be respectful in dress, and so on and so on. That's really what a lot of it is, in my opinion. That's why, and I also had a woman ask me about why is it that she said that men approach her, but not in the area of serious relationships, but just want to be friends and that's it. And so when I talked to Sister Sadia today, I asked her, I said, maybe you can articulate that better than me. What makes a woman wife material from a woman's standpoint? I said, since you've been married 14 years, you can maybe deliver that message. I mean, I can say it from a guy's point of view. I said, but I prefer maybe you say it. So she'll be back over here maybe about next week or so. Well, for me, like I said, when I see a black man and a Caucasian woman or vice versa, I don't automatically look at them with disdain. If I knew that, I had to talk to them. I don't know the situation. I've met some white people in my lifetime that was adopted by a black family. Matter of fact, last time I was in family court, they had a 5-year-old white child being adopted by a black family, and it was a white male judge granted that child to that black family. I think about 2 white people I've met in my lifetime that's been raised by a black family, black neighborhood. All they knew is black people. So all they would date is black people because that's kind of who they grew up around. So you don't know. My thing is I like to get to know people before I make a judgment, because we can't go around and say don't judge us by the color of our skin, and then when it comes to other people, we just look at people and just make a judgment. I like to get to know people just a little bit. I'm not saying I'll trust you. I trust no man or no woman, period. I have no trust for you, except for God, my family, XYZ. Strange people just don't trust you, period. So I'll talk to you, have respect for you. It's the way I was raised, and I go from there. But I don't think you should trust nobody, period. Even if they're married to a black person, don't mean they can't be a snake. And that's the thing that you like. Burning Tree 66 should have taught a lot of your guys that don't look at looks when it comes to being for the community, because she got the dreads, she got it all, and yet she was cooning it up on here. Even if a person's married to a black person, still can be the biggest coon. They can. So don't let that always what somebody do who they pick all the time. look at their actions, look at their words, and what they're doing for the community is what I focus more on than anything. But that's just me. Like I said, I try not to. I'm not nobody's leader. I'm just giving my opinion as the media guy. I don't know Sister Shayla May, but I've seen it. I don't know. I've seen it, and the little girl, she loved him too. I mean, she was so happy to be with him. I think she was with him before, and the judge gave him full custody. Yeah, like I said, that's what I saw, and that's that on that situation. Well, people gonna generalize all the time, and that's something I don't really worry about too much. What people think about me, it's not what people say about you, is what you say about yourself, really. Because people gonna hate you every day. I learned that a long time ago. But like for what I do for a living, before I wrap this up, for what I do, I have to try to have some sort of balance, because this stuff can consume you. Looking at these images constantly, and it can get you very angry. And yes, sometimes I am very angry in my commentaries. I am angry because really, you heard that? You heard that screaming over the thing? Anyway, you say you plan on adopting once your children's older. Okay, I can't do it. I done had enough. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'm gonna get off of here. See you next.